Shadow the Hedgehog is Sonic's best supporting character. There's no debate there based on the year he had. Last time on our channel, we went over the first 3 episodes of his storyline from Sonic X. Check out that video if you haven't already, but we continue by going over the next 3 episodes in the Shadow storyline. With all that said, I'm Rocko from Reamlore, and let's dive in. By the way, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe because we upload videos just like this one on our Reamlore channel. Season 2, Episode 10. Everyone is chilling at Chris's temporary house and a news broadcast says everyone made it off the island, meaning Shadow took Chris before the place went up. Sonic runs off to search for Chris and everyone thinks if they find Eggman's base, they'll find Chris. Knuckles, meanwhile, is in a desert looking for Rouge and the Master Emerald and he finds a fake pyramid, Eggman's base. Chris is not there though, instead he's with Shadow on the space colony Ark, which is like a second moon. Shadow explains this was created by Gerald Robotnik 50 years ago and has been kept a secret from the world. Chris asks if Shadow is related to Sonic, but Shadow just stands there, remembering what happened here. He, Maria, and Gerald were running away from the soldiers. Shadow was locked in the tube and Maria, played by Stephanie Sheh, tells him she'll always be his friend, and even though they wanted to visit the Earth together, he'll have to go on his own. Maria sent him down to Earth and Shadow promised to make all of them pay. Eggman puts the 6 Chaos Emeralds into the Eclipse Cannon and says it has enough firepower to destroy the planet. We catch up with Stuart and Scarlet trying to find someone connected to Project Shadow. They enter a rundown motel looking for a guy called Schmitz, but he's not there, and unbeknownst to them, they are being followed by these men in black suits. Eggman, meanwhile, broadcasts a message to the world, telling everyone to look at the moon. He activates Space Colony Ark, which blasts half the base away to reveal a massive cannon. He fires the Eclipse Cannon at the moon and destroys half of it. Everyone starts to freak out as we learn Tails has the last Chaos Emerald Eggman needs to wipe out the planet. Eggman tells the world they have 24 hours to surrender to the Eggman Empire or he will blow their planet away. Shadow tells Chris today is when things finally end and he remembers talking with Maria. He wonders what it's like to be on planet Earth and says Gerald Robotnik created him to do something important, so Shadow thinks it has something to do with the Earth. Tails and Chris's grandpa Chuck are making alterations to the X-Tornado so he can fly into space, and Tails shows off a fake Chaos Emerald which emits the same sort of energy. He created it, but it's not as strong as the original Chaos Emerald. Sonic is still looking for Chris on the ground while also avoiding the police. While running, he bumps into Knuckles, who is in the city. What? I thought he was in the desert just now. He's fighting government robots, so Sonic jumps in to help. Mr. Tanaka, now cosplaying as Kill Bill, I love it, rides in on a motorcycle to distract them so Sonic and Tails can get away. The President and Eggman negotiate, but Eggman tells him he needs to join the Eggman Empire or else. The President tries to stall so the military could counterattack, but Eggman sees through it and gives him 12 hours to comply. Mr. Tanaka drives Sonic and friends to the desert where Knuckles saw Eggman's base. Everyone enters the base and it turns out Topaz is there following them. They enter but encounter a locked door none of them could smash through. They all look at Knuckles and ask him to find a key since he's a treasure hunter. He doesn't want to, but is persuaded when Cream, played by Rebecca Hwine, says he is a treasure hunter but maybe not a very good one. Yeah, I haven't mentioned Cream yet, even though she's been popping up here and there, and it's mostly because she didn't have much impact on the plot. But I like her. She's not a fighter like the rest, but she's an adorable side character that exists to be cute along with her pet Cheese, a blue alien thing called a Chow. And hearing her innocent voice roast Knuckles is very funny. Knuckles grumbles as he runs into Bo Koon, also played by Andrew Rannells. Just like with Cream, Bo Koon had been popping up here and there, but nothing plot relevant, so I didn't mention him. He's another comic relief minion for Eggman, which is unnecessary. 2 was already pushing it. 3 is too much. He's a fine character though, and he tells Knuckles to leave, but Knuckles walks past him because Bo Koon is a joke in the show. Bo Koon does have a super robot called the Egg Golem, which is this huge stone guardian, and Knuckles tricks him into opening the door. He and Sonic work together to topple the giant, but Bo Koon, actually being smart, takes a hostage in the form of Topaz, telling them to back off. He gets back to stupid pretty quickly though, as instead of being on top of his giant robot, he's on the ground. Since he's basically a toddler, Cream and Mr. Tanaka just take the remote away from him. They turn the Egg Golem on Bo Koon and tell him to chase him down, forcing the henchman to run through the desert trying to stay alive. Okay, that was pretty funny. Mr. Tanaka too. He rescues Topaz and she is very much in love with him. Tails flies to the base and lands the X-Tornado inside, reuniting with everyone. He tells everyone he adapted the X-Tornado to go into space, but Amy points out it only seats 4, and if he's bringing Chris back, only 2 of them can go along. Fortunately, Eggman had a spare spaceship lying around. How does he have this much money? Topaz offers to stay with Cream and Cheese, and wait, why did you guys bring them along on this dangerous mission? The squad of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Mr. Tanaka take the spaceship with the X-Tornado and blast off into space, ending the episode. How does this one rank? Characterization gets a 5. Everyone is great in this episode, even the minor characters who don't do that much like Cream and the President. Story gets a 3. It's a decent story to get everyone up in space with the action here or there, but it's not as compelling as what we've seen. Entertainment gets a 2. I mean, I am having fun, it's just less Shadow really brings it down. That's not to say it isn't entertaining, but the big conflict is the characters fighting Bo Kun. There's not that much struggle there. Importance gets a 3. It isn't super important to the arc, it's another episode that acts as a setup to more important stories, but for the full experience you should watch. Alright, penultimate episode, Season 2, Episode 11. Stuart and Scarlett arrive at a retirement home where they find Schmitz, played by Richard Hollafer. He doesn't want to speak to them, especially about what happened on the space colony arc 50 years ago. Schmitz warns them not to look into this because it stirs up trouble, but Scarlett is desperate to learn the truth. Schmitz is the only one left who knows what really happened up there. Everyone else is dead, including her father. Stuart pulls her back though because he sees this is bringing up painful memories for Schmitz. While this is going on, Sonic and friends fly through space and Rouge tricks Eggman into giving her the password to the space colony to intercept them. She starts hacking and finds the files on Project Shadow and wonders who Shadow really is. Stuart and Scarlett leave the retirement home but run into these guys wearing the black suits. Stuart tells Scarlett to get in the car as he shows off how cool he is by beating up the bad guys off screen. Yeah, this is 4 kids rearing their ugly heads and I have to call them out on this. They have been pretty tame on cutting out fight scenes, but there are some instances where it was clearly cut down and that hurts the product. Mistranslations and changing speech is one thing, but cutting out footage of people punching each other is too much. One of the goons grabs Scarlett, but Schmitz shows up and karate chops the dude in the back of the head. Sonic and friends get close to the space colony, but Knuckles grabs the wheel once he feels the Master Emerald is on the station, almost killing them as they crash into the base. Yeah, I like Knuckles a lot, but I always forget he's kinda dumb. Knuckles goes off on his own and finds the Master Emerald, but Rouge is there to intercept him, and they fight. Rouge almost falls off the side, but Knuckles grabs her and pulls her up. Dude, I know you were acting on instinct, but she can fly. Rouge thinks he was trying to be fresh and walks off, saying she doesn't care about the Master Emerald anymore. Knuckles takes the emerald as Tails walks the X-Tornado through the base with the team. Tails tells Sonic if they insert his fake Chaos Emerald into the space colony, it would cause a reaction and fry the Eclipse Cannon. Unfortunately for them, Eggman was waiting and captures Amy, demanding the Chaos Emerald. Next, we have a stupid moment on everyone's part. Sonic walks forward to give him the fake Chaos Emerald, and Eggman traps him in a cage which will launch him into space. You're probably thinking, well, I guess Eggman figured out it was fake. But he didn't, because Tails, being a moron, blurts out it's fake, which shocks Eggman. What was your plan, dude? You need that Chaos Emerald, so why would you try to get rid of it along with Sonic? And why would Tails just blurt out it's fake? This made more sense in the game. There, Eggman already found out there was a fake Chaos Emerald, and set this up to trick Tails into revealing which one it was. Why didn't we just do that here? Sonic says everything's okay as his friends start to cry, and he tells Tails it's up to him to stop the cannon. Eggman launches Sonic into space and blows up the canister, seemingly killing him. Shadow tells Chris that Sonic is dead, which freaks him out. Everyone is sad, but Tails dries his tears and goes to fight Eggman as Mr. Tanaka gets Amy away. Meanwhile, Schmitz opens up about what really happened 50 years ago on the space colony arc. He doesn't explain the whole story, but this is a good chance to clear it up because it is a bit confusing. It's because a bunch of other people tell the story, and with 4 kids' mistranslations, it makes the story even harder to follow. For a full history, Gerald Robotnik and his team of scientists were on the space colony arc. Gerald designed the thing for scientists to work in peace when they were approached by the United Nations, the world government, and the Guardian Unit of Nations, GUN. GUN simply wanted Gerald to make weapons for them, but he didn't want to do that. He was a pacifist. He wanted to build things to help humanity. Gerald was a good man who wanted to help the world, but he changed his mind because of Maria. His granddaughter Maria was suffering from a disease called neuroimmune deficiency syndrome, which left her frail and weak. The zero gravity on the arc helped, but it wasn't a permanent solution. Gerald thought if he found the secret to immortality, he could help Maria. His idea was to create the ultimate life form, something that wouldn't get sick or die, then use that DNA to help Maria. He also had to hide the fact he was looking for a cure and made it look like he was building a weapon to keep Gun off his back, and let him keep the space colony arc. Gerald, in addition to being a scientist, was also an archaeologist, fascinated by the Echidna drawings and ruins. Gerald found the Chaos Emeralds and used their powers to create life. He was inspired by the drawings of chaos from several ruins and created a prototype, but it didn't work out. Gerald took inspiration from a hedgehog drawing and created Shadow, the ultimate life form. What was different was Gerald based Shadow's soul on Maria, so he would be a good person at heart no matter what. Shadow wasn't complete yet though. Gerald needed more time to study him and finish his work, and in that time Shadow and Maria became close friends, dreaming about going to the Earth together. Gerald would have finished Shadow 2 if it wasn't for Gun. Gun, who is like the corrupt military division, made the United Nations think Gerald was creating an ultimate weapon to use against them. They did this so that they could get the green light to stop the research, but they had a different objective. Gunn wanted to take Shadow for themselves and use it as a weapon at their discretion, and they had a screwed up plan to take it. Their plan was simple: go up to the space colony Ark and kill everyone related to Project Shadow. From there, they would take Shadow and Gerald for themselves and blame Gerald for the deaths, labeling the thing as a biohazard outbreak. They arrived at the station and did everything I said, Gunn telling the soldiers they were protecting the world from evil scientists and monsters. Gerald was determined to save Maria and Shadow, so he sent them to the escape pods. Shadow tried to fight, but because he wasn't finished, he was too weak. Maria carried him to the escape pods and loaded him in when Schmitz arrived. Think about this from his perspective. Based on the lies Gunn told him, he thinks Maria is about to unleash a monster onto planet Earth, which is why he demands she not pull that lever. Maria doesn't listen and pulls the lever, which gets her shot. They don't show it, thankfully, but seeing Schmitz's face and how he cries, this has clearly haunted him his whole life. He says he only joined the military because he wanted to protect the world and give back, but Gunn used him and so many others to further their own agendas. Now in the dub, Classic 4 Kids here makes it so he didn't shoot her. Instead, they took her back to Earth, but this is one instance where it works both ways. Maria had a disease that is killing her, and the zero gravity was the only thing that stabilized her condition. So forcing her back to Earth to die a slow and painful death is just as bad. I mean, I prefer Maria being shot because it's more dramatic, but it's still gut-wrenching. Of course, that's not the end of the story. I'll talk about that later, but for now, Scarlet comforts Schmitz and thanks him for telling the truth, despite the risks that Gunn might kill him. Back on the Ark, Knuckles is running through the space colony with the Master Emerald when Sonic teleports in front of him. Sonic explains that after seeing Shadow use Chaos Control, he figured he can do the same and did so with the fake Chaos Emerald. Sonic says he's going to put the fake emerald in the Eclipse Cannon while Knuckles reunites with the others. Rouge, meanwhile, is copying all the data about Project Shadow and admits to Topaz even Eggman doesn't know the whole story. Rouge plans on getting the Chaos Emeralds before she leaves, but Shadow arrives to tell her hands off. Shadow calls her a phony, but Rouge says he's not the real deal either. She shows off that the original creature was sealed off years ago, which Shadow confirms, saying it was a prototype. Rouge then mentions there were 2 capsules ejected from the space colony when the raid happened, but they were never found, so how did Shadow end up on Prison Island? All of this implies that Shadow's memories are fake, that he's a clone and these memories are fabrications made by someone, but sorry to say they're not. Continuing the story explanation, Maria shot the 2 capsules down to Earth. One of them was supposed to be for her, and the other had Shadow inside. Gunn found Shadow and brought it to Gerald so he can finish working on it. This clone, false memory nonsense was to explain how Shadow died at the end of his game and came back, but it made things more complicated, so they retcon that later. Tails is beating down Eggman and thinks he's won, but Eggman takes the yellow Chaos Emerald out of the X-Tornado at the last moment. Eggman calls Shadow and tells him to stop the intruders from getting to the Eclipse Cannon. Shadow starts to walk off even as Rouge says he's not the real Shadow. He says even if his memories are fake, he will do what he must. He will keep his promise to Maria. Knuckles finds Chris and they reunite with Tails, Amy, and Mr. Tanaka. Sonic and Shadow face off and they race, with Shadow this time asking Sonic who he is since he's now unsure of himself. The fight is pretty intense with blasts and spike balls. Their fight is causing damage to the cannon, but Eggman doesn't care and loads the final Chaos Emerald inside to fire at the Earth. The cannon doesn't fire, however. Instead, the station goes dark and half the screens turn to a timer, 27 minutes and 53 seconds. The other screens show Gerald Robotnik chained to a chair. Gerald says the countdown to his revenge on this world has begun. In a few minutes, Space Colony Ark will crash into the Earth, killing everyone. Alright, this is one of the best episodes in this whole arc. How does it rank? Characterization gets a 5. Everyone is really strong in this episode. Tails, Sonic, Shadow, everyone is a standout with their own cool character moment. The story is getting a 6. The story just picked up in a big way. Not only do we get a full backstory of what happened on the space colony, but the current storyline picked up in a massive way. Sonic's fake out death, Tails fighting back against Eggman, and the cliffhanger ending saying the world is about to end. Entertainment gets a 6. Everything in this is so good. The climactic fights are amazing. Sonic and Shadow, Eggman and Tails, Knuckles and Rouge. It's all so epic. Importance gets a 5. We finally get the backstory of what happened on the Space Colony Ark, and it's a satisfying reveal, even though 4Kids heavily edited the story. And here we are, the finale to this arc, Season 2, Episode 12. Sonic and Shadow continue their fight as the Space Colony Ark starts to shake. This is a good time to mention something I like about their rivalry. Sonic has never beaten Shadow. Throughout all their races and fights, it's either been Shadow coming out with the dub or ending in a tie, showing that Shadow is the ultimate life form and no one can take him on head to head. Plus, it's not like Sonic is inferior to Shadow or anything like that. They both have their strengths and weaknesses, and Sonic has beaten enemies Shadow couldn't beat, so it balances out. Shadow leaves as the other characters meet up with Eggman, helpless to watch as the Chaos Emeralds get transported elsewhere. The message from Gerald continues saying they have no time to escape or survive. Since their leaders took Maria from him, he's destroying everything they care about. Alright, let's finish the backstory. After the space colony Ark was shut down, the United Nations labeled what happened there as a biohazard accident, and put all of the blame on Gerald Robotnik. Gunn brought Gerald to Prison Island, recovered Shadow, and forced the scientists to finish his creation. They wanted Shadow to be a weapon, but after Gerald learned of Maria's death, he went insane. Gerald played along and made it look like he was finishing Shadow, when in reality he was crafting his ultimate revenge against humanity. He created a program for the space colony. When the Chaos Emeralds were inserted into the cannon, which was designed to destroy asteroids, they would propel the station to Earth. It would cause mass devastation, killing everyone on the planet. He did finish Shadow, but also rewrote his memories, so Shadow would be the weapon Gunn wanted him to be and execute Gerald's plans. Now Shadow remembers Maria being gunned down and the people of Earth responsible. Gunn figured out Gerald's plan and decided to shut everything down, seal the creature away, and kill Gerald. From there, Gerald was executed by firing squad, which is why we see him chained up in a prison cell giving a speech. It was his last words before he died. And that is the full story of Shadow's backstory. I mean, there's also Gerald making a deal with the Demon Lord, but don't worry about that. What an awesome backstory for a dark variant of the main character. It is so in-depth and so emotional, making it one of the best hidden backstories ever. This is why Shadow has stuck around for so many different iterations of Sonic, while other new characters have faded from people's memories. Throughout Sonic's journey, from the first Genesis game to Sonic Adventure 2, he found friends, happiness, whereas Shadow only found pain and loss. Because at their core, Sonic and Shadow are very much alike. If things turned out differently, Sonic would be just like Shadow. Rouge rolls in to join everyone and says the computers are locked so they can't change course, and Eggman doesn't like this because he'll die too. Sonic rolls in saying if they all work together they could fix this. Eggman shows everyone Gerald's diary explaining his motivation, which I already told you about. Meanwhile, Topaz and the police find the black suit guys and arrest them. Turns out they were members of Gunn, doing everything they could to keep their involvement in Project Shadow under wraps. They wanted to distance their involvement in all the horrible things they did, but when Eggman accessed the file which Rouge gave Topaz, they had all the proof they needed to bring them in, along with Schmidt's confession. Eggman explains to everyone that the Chaos Emeralds are feeding energy into the Ark and it is going to detonate the whole thing. The blast will be more massive than a supernova, and they're also what's pushing the Ark towards the Earth. They all turn to Knuckles because with the Master Emerald, he can use it to shut off the power from the Chaos Emeralds. Everyone agrees to work together to save the planet and themselves. Eggman, Tails, and Rouge all fend off the robot defenses as Sonic, Knuckles, and Eggman's robots bring the Master Emerald to where the Chaos Emeralds are. Mr. Tanaka, Chris, and Amy, meanwhile, have stayed back since they would just be in the way. Mr. Tanaka assures Chris and Amy they'll get there in time, but Shadow arrives and says they will fail. Yeah, Shadow knew about the Ark and Gerald's plans the whole time, so he was playing Eggman to finish the thing. Chris begs Shadow to save everyone since he thinks Shadow doesn't want to hurt people, that deep down he was made to help others, but Shadow tells him to back off, hitting Chris. Shadow says he made a promise to avenge Maria, but Chris says revenge won't help anything, and he can't blame everyone today for what a group of people did 50 years ago. Shadow tells him to shut up, that back then Maria was his only friend, but Gunn sent soldiers to kill her. He says he tried to stop them, but because he was incomplete, he couldn't, and he never saw Maria again. All Maria wanted was to visit Earth, but she never got that chance. Chris tells him that not everyone on the planet is bad, most of the people are good, and that Maria would want Shadow to be friends with people. Shadow, after hearing this, remembers what Maria told him as she died, that she wants Shadow to be happy and make friends on Earth. She says that even though Earth is beautiful, the people have to face many problems. That's why Shadow was created, to help others. In the Sonic Adventure game, Chris wasn't the one reaching out because he didn't exist. It was Amy who reached out to Shadow asking for help, but the effect is still the same. Shadow remembers who Maria wanted him to be and realizes what he has to do. Sonic, Knuckles, and the Goofbots arrive to this altar room where the Chaos Emeralds are held, and they are guarded by the Bio Lizard. They don't explain what this thing is in the episode for some reason, but this was the prototype Shadow mentioned earlier. Gerald designed it based on the drawings of Chaos he found. Good foreshadowing by the anime, because we saw scientists experimenting on the lizards in a previous episode. In the past, the Gun soldiers tried to kill the Bio Lizard, who looks awesome by the way, but since it's a monster and immortal like Shadow, they instead locked it up on the Ark. Shadow arrives, man he is fast, and he tells Sonic that he will distract the Bio Lizard while Sonic grabs the Chaos Emeralds. He jumps into action and fights the Bio Lizard, and it's super cool of course. Sonic's team make it to the top of the tower, and Knuckles uses the Master Emerald to stop the Chaos Emeralds as Shadow beats the Bio Lizard. Shadow's big brother is not done yet, however, because since it's basically the same as Shadow, it can also use Chaos Control. So it teleports to the outside of the Ark and starts pulling the space colony to Earth himself, which is just awesome. Even more awesome though is when Sonic and Shadow use the Chaos Emeralds to become Super Sonic and Super Shadow. Everyone on Earth starts to panic but notice Sonic and Shadow fighting the space colony. They all root for them to succeed. The fight is pretty intense and has some of the best animation in the entire arc, as Sonic and Shadow use all their powers to stop the space colony from coming any closer to Earth. The only thing missing from this sequence in Sonic X is, of course, Live and Learn. Live and Learn by Crush 40 was the song that played during the final climactic space battle from Sonic Adventure 2. It was such an iconic song, backing arguably the best Sonic final boss fight in the character's history. So not having it during this final sequence just feels wrong. Put Live and Learn in the background while you watch to make this better. Shadow, thinking of Maria's last request, understands what he has to do. He takes off his golden bands that have been on his wrist the whole time, which unleashes his full untapped power. While Gerald was testing Shadow's abilities, he noticed he was too strong, so he created those rings to seal his greater power so he had more control. Shadow goes all out, along with Sonic, to use Chaos Control and teleports the space colony back to its original position. While leaving, Eggman tells the Sonic team that he looked up to his grandfather and wanted to be a great scientist just like him, but it was wrong to try and destroy the planet because he wants to conquer it and establish his empire. Yeah, nothing changes with this guy. The ending is bittersweet, however, as when Sonic returns, Shadow is nowhere to be seen. He gave his life to stop the space colony from crashing into the Ark. Rouge also thinks that maybe Gerald wanted Shadow to stop his plan all along. Think about it, Gerald copied his granddaughter's soul and gave it to Shadow, so that even at his worst, Shadow deep down is a good person. Sorry to ruin the emotional moment, but Shadow survived, obviously. He used up all his energy and Eggman rescued him when he went out into space just now. And he would be back for Season 3. Fun fact though, in the original game, Shadow was supposed to die, but the game and character were so popular they had to bring Shadow back. They did in Sonic Heroes with the insinuation this was a clone, but that was quickly retconned with the Eggman rescue in Shadow the Hedgehog. The Shadow story arc ends with Sonic looking at the same view Shadow looked at every day, while saying goodbye to his dark counterpart and going home with his friends. How does the final episode of the Shadow arc rank? Characterization, I'm giving a 6. The standout is obviously Shadow, but everyone, even Chris, is useful and shows off their characters, working off each other great. Plus with the extra characterization of Gerald going mad with grief. The story gets a 6. We finally get the full circle moment with Shadow realizing his true mission to protect the world, and the struggle to stop the space colony is great. Entertainment is getting a 7. Seeing 2 super hedgehogs alone would have been enough to put this at a 5, but teleporting the massive space colony in addition to all the other great fights in this boosts this to a 7. Importance also gets a 5. This is the big conclusion of the arc, and this finale had ramifications going into the rest of Sonic X. It is a must-watch for Sonic fans. So what happened after this? Well, Sonic X wrapped up its second season with everyone going back to Sonic's world, and Season 3 was good, wrapping up all the Sonic X storylines. Sonic X is one of the greatest Sonic shows of all time, and we got many more Sonic TV shows, movies, and games after that. Sonic is in a very good place right now, which is impressive for something that's been around for more than 30 years. As for Shadow, he was so popular he returned in Sonic Heroes and then started his own video game that you either love or hate depending on what you like. There he fought demons, which is a can of worm for another day, and he has cemented himself as one of Sonic's most popular characters. So much so the third big budget Sonic movie is all about him, played by John Wick himself, Keanu Reeves. That's all I have for you today. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all later.